Ready? Okay. Good evening, everyone. We're going to get started. Hold on just one sec. Thanks. Hi, before we get started, the Village of Anmore would like to open our meeting by recognizing the many Indigenous peoples of our area, including the following First Nations with communities that are located in the region that we now know as Metro Vancouver. There'd be the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Coquitlam. Further, we'd like to honor the important place in history occupied by the many territorial keepers of these lands and waters around us since time immemorial. I'll call the meeting to order. It's currently 7:03 on May the 5th. Before I get the agenda, that the agenda of the May 5th, 2026 regular council meeting be amended by moving item 11C, 2025 financial statements, report on financial statements for 2025 to immediately following public input, and that the agenda of the May 5th, 2026 regular council meeting be approved as amended. Could I get someone to move that? Moved. Second. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. That's so that we don't have to put the auditor through a whole council meeting, or most of it. Thanks. Public input. We'll now move on to public input. Per the Local Government Act, Council cannot accept any further input from the public relating to the OCP amendment bylaw that was passed since the public hearing is concluded last week. Participants should refrain from commenting on anything regarding this bylaw, but we'll open up to public input. Public is allowed to a 2-minute comment and any items that are on tonight's agenda. If you could just start off with your name and address, please.
My name is Mike, 2555 Sunnyside Road. I just got a few questions or comments about the Spirit Park, that option number 3. In this plan, I don't see any drainage or anything consideration for drainage in between the land that's cleared and my property. And last time this was brought up, it was mentioned by, I think you asked Chris, that they're going to be putting in some sort of drainage system in there. And the only mention in the financials of drainage is with the parking lot. That's on page 82, I think. Yeah, 82. Makes it easier. So I'm just wondering what happened to the drainage there, and are we going to go ahead without one?
Good.
Okay.
Thank you. And that's only just so we're, just regarding option number 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks. Any other public input? Anything regarding tonight's agenda? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on then. Could I get adoption? Or we're going to move on to 11C, financial statements. Report on our financial statements for 2025. Paul Fripp, CPA, CA Partner and Assurance Services, BDO Canada, is present our financial statements for 2025. Mr. Fripp.
Thank you very much for having me attend your meeting this evening. My name is Paul Fripp. I'm an audit partner with BDO Canada, and we're here to present the financial statements for the year ended December 31st, 2025. At this point in time, we've substantially completed our audit, and we are in a position to provide the village with an unqualified or unmodified audit opinion. So that is the highest form of opinion that we can place on financial statements in Canada. In terms of the financial statements themselves, starting out with the statement of financial position, looking at the financial assets, those have increased from 18.3 to almost 18.4 to 20.4 million. That is largely due to the increase in cash, which you'll see went from 8.9 million to just under 11.3 million. There was a decrease in accounts receivables from about 1.3 million down to just over 700,000. That's because there were some outstanding grants at the end of 2024, which were collected as cash by the village in 2025. The remainder of the assets are largely consistent year over year. Moving down to liabilities, you'll see the composition of liabilities are fairly stable. Total liabilities went from 7.6 million to about 7.7 million, so very, very consistent year over year. Bringing you down to net financial assets, which is a measure of if the village had to extinguish all of its financial liabilities today, what would be left over? And that's, as at December 31, 2025, there was 12.7 million in net financial assets. Moving down to non-financial assets, you'll see that this category is dominated by tangible capital assets. That's represented by roads, pipes, yeah, mostly roads, but it's the infrastructure that the village has put in place for the benefit of ratepayers. That sits at just over 70 million. That's slightly down from 70.9 million, and that's because the annual expense called amortization expense, sitting at just over 1.5 million per year, outpaced capital additions specifically in this year. So there was about 735,000 in capital additions in the year versus the amortization expense of 1.5 million. So that's drawing that tangible capital asset value down. That brings you to the total accumulated surplus of the village, sitting at 82.9 million, up from 81.8 million. The majority of that accumulated surplus is sitting in investments made in tangible capital assets. Moving on to the statement of operations, you'll see that this current year, 2025, very consistent with 2024, representing a stable year that largely went as planned by the village. Total revenue, 6.6 million. Planned revenues was 5.9 million. Large difference there is attributed to community amenity contributions received, 450,000. Just by virtue of the nature of those community amenity contributions, those are not budgeted for. So happened to be that those were received in the year, recognized as revenue, but not planned for by the village. And then the remainder of the income sources are fairly consistent year over year. Moving down to expenses, planned expenses, 5.7 million versus 5.5 actual. So again, very consistent when you compare year over year, 25 to 24, very consistent in its composition. Overall annual surplus is sitting at roughly 1.1 million. That's down from about 2.4 million last year. That's largely because of the capital activities in 2024. If you take a look up at 2024 revenues, you'll see that government transfers in both unconditional and conditional are sitting higher than they are in 2025, and that's because that was funding tied to specific capital projects which were utilized and recognized in 2024. Those don't always happen year to year. It's dependent on the capital activities that take place. Overall, very strong results for the village, and as I mentioned, we're in a position to issue an unqualified audit opinion.
Good. Thank you. Any questions? No questions? Okay. The motion would be that the 2025 financial statements be received. Someone to move that? Move, seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you, Paul. So we'll go back on to adoption of the minutes of the regular council meeting held on April 21st, 2026. Could I get someone to move the recommendation? Moved, seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Is there any minutes arising from the minutes? No? Okay. We have a consent agenda. Anybody want to pull anything from the consent agenda? Councillor Trowbridge. Oh. Anyway, I was going to pull 7.B. So could I get somebody to move the other on the consent agenda? Second. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Ms. Hork, is Lena coming back, or? Oh, okay. So this is the, to give final reading to the Anmore 5-year financial bylaw, which we discussed in detail at the last council meeting, and gave three unanimous readings in regards to it. So this is the final adoption, and before I adopt it, I just wanted to mention a couple things. Number one is this is a real testament to a lot of hard work that's gone on by staff and council regarding where we are financially in this village. To do a 3.7 tax increase, and like I said previously, with all our infrastructure, 3.27? Okay, tax increase with all our infrastructure fully funded is quite something and is unmatched, I would say, in a lot of municipalities around us. What I really appreciate is that none of this council has done, these are true numbers. There's no campaigning, there's no electioneering in this whatsoever in regards to it, because these are true numbers that we need to be able to fund our village and make sure that it runs efficiently and that we have adequate reserves to be able to replace equipment as it comes due. So what I would like to do is, it's at the wishes of council, is to do, I was thinking some sort of a flyer, if this were to get adopted, to get distributed to the community in very simple terms, in plain English, so that everybody can fully understand it. We're outlining reserves, outlining how this municipality is funded. I think it's 99.6 of the funding actually comes from residential, so we don't have a lot of sources about it. But just to ask council about doing a flyer to just really outline our financial situation, and what my hope is that it would give the future council that starts in Thursday a benchmark of where we need to be, and also educate the residents as to because this has taken a long time to get there, and I can, to get where we are right now, where we're having modest increases. And so that was what my plan was. I'm not sure exactly the dynamics of how to do it. I was talking about, just a real state of the finances, how our capital infrastructure is funded for replacement. Could be, and it would be a good guide, so that what happens a lot in a lot of neighboring municipalities is municipalities, to balance their budget and to bring rates artificially low, will go into the reserves, and that's not a good place for us to be. We didn't have any reserves many, many years ago. So that's what my hope is. It would be basically a village finance 101, and that we would be able to then distribute it to the community, and very clear, maybe even some color charts that we see in some of the neighboring municipalities, to really outline where it is and outline everything where we're at and the work that we've done, so it gives a total benchmark moving forward. Ms. Elrick.
Thank you. So staff is currently working on our tax insert that we insert with the tax notices that will be going out in the end of May. So this is quite timely to have this conversation now. So I think that if council wants to provide any feedback or comments on things, we've made a couple of notes, and I'm sure Ms. Martin has as well, on things to incorporate into that notice that's already going into the tax notices. Would that meet council's needs? Or are you thinking of something separate? Just because in timeline-wise, something separate would not be going out much in advance of the end of the month that the notices are going out anyways.
My preference would be separate, so that, and it follows up with exactly what we're hopefully going to be adopting tonight, and it would be a follow-up, because I know, as most people, when they get their tax notices, they know it's a tax notice, and they go right to how much they owe, they separate that, and that's really what's done. And I know that we've been working over the years. We've been looking at Port Coquitlam, for example, that does a fairly good job in regards to of that, where the money is going for that taxing. But I was hoping to do something different with a much more 101 of where we've come from, and so that it would really lay a benchmark for council, for Anmore Council moving forward after the election, if that's amicable too.
Sure, just in terms of timeline, it would likely go out at the same, where, production and pulling this together would likely go out at the same time, but we can certainly separate the two items.
Sure. Yeah. I'll open up for, I haven't got a, can we draft a motion that a financial flyer be distributed upon approval of today's budget, outlining the progress to date, the status of where we are, and how the challenges that basically lie ahead for the village, I guess would be the motion. Somebody wants to, we don't have a current motion on the.
Through the chair, the adoption of the bylaws would be the main motion, but
Yeah.
this can be motion arising.
Yeah. So. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Is that? Yeah, and I think it would be good to distribute to council to get all those key points in there about, how we amortize vehicles for a useful life and we replace them so that they retain as much value as they can, and do a bunch of those sorts of things in regards to talk about amortization of some of our infrastructure, i.e. roads, water systems, and stuff like that, so that people get a really good understanding of where we're at, and we're in very layman's, non-technical, non-finance terms, so that it's very easy for everybody to read. So, and I just, like I said, I think it would give a good baseline for future council as they move forward, to not dip into reserves, which are easy for a lot of municipalities to do. Councillor Cryer.
I recall that POCO does this every year, and I think I brought it in one year, probably not. Theirs was it was brief, to the point, but had all of the relevant information that made people understand the work that it takes to put into getting a good budget.
Perfect. Ms. Essen?
If possible, can we deal with the bylaws first and then the other motion second?
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
So the bylaw would be that, that Anmore 5-year financial plan bylaw number 739-2026 and 2026 Anmore tax rates bylaw number 740-2026 be now adopted as recommended in the memo dated May 1st, 2026 from our finance department. Moved, seconded. Any discussion? See none. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. And then the subsequent motion would be that a flyer with a synopsis of the village's current financial situation, explaining in very layman terms, be distributed throughout the village, I guess. Moved. Second. Any discussion? See none. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, we'll now move on to 9A, zoning bylaw amendment application, CD1 Mucal. Report dated May 1st, 2026 from Manager of Development Services attached. Mr. Joseph.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So this report introduces an application to amend the existing CD1 zone for the strata development located at the corner of Sunnyside Road and Alpine Drive, consisting of roughly 5.2 acres. The intent is to provide an overview of the proposal and seek additional council direction before the application proceeds further. So a bit of background, the property is the village's earliest comprehensive development zone, and it currently consists of 6 bareland strata lots organized around a central common property. Historically, the common area supported an equestrian use, including a riding arena and a barn to the south of the property, which is no longer in use today. At the time of the original approval, the development was supported by an OCP policy at the time that allowed for a slightly higher density in exchange for a retention of a significant amount of open space. In this case, approximately 2.15 acres were preserved as a private common property and a portion protected through an environmental covenant, rather than being dedicated to the village. This resulted from a recommendation from the APC and council at the time, as there were liability concerns, specifically surrounding the conflicts between the equestrian use and the property, as well as public access to the open space. The current proposal application proposes to remove the unused arena at the south of the common property and create 2 additional bare land strata lots, each just over half an acre in size. This would increase the total number of lots from 6 to 8 and would result in a density of approximately 1.5 lots per acre, which remains within the maximum permitted density of 1.8 lots per acre for CD zones under the official community plan policy, RLU 8. The proposed lots would be accessed from Alpine Drive as panhandle parcels and would be serviced by existing infrastructure. In addition, the applicant has proposed dedicating approximately 0.7 acres of land, including the pond area, to the village for park purposes. From the policy perspective, staff find that the proposal may generally be consistent with the official community plan policy, RLU 8. It represents a modest increase in density in line with the current zone and OSP policy without introducing new infrastructure. Additionally, the proposed lots are designed to preserve the wetland and tree preservation area outlined in the common area. So a key question, though, is whether the proposed dedication of portions of the common area is considered to be an overall benefit to the community, both socially or environmentally or economically. There are several considerations regarding the proposed parkland dedication that staff have concerns with, and so we're seeking further input on. The pond located in the proposed park currently serves as a drainage detention pond, while also having environmental value and a covenant associated with it. So at this stage, there's no environmental or riparian assessments that have been completed. However, the applicants are aware that further studies will be required to confirm regulatory requirements, understand impacts, and determine appropriate protection measures for developments around the wetland area. A stormwater management plan may also be needed to ensure function of the current drainage system over the long term. So accepting a drainage feature would also typically require confirmation that any infrastructure meets village standards, but would also require additional legal agreements between the village and owners to define responsibilities, costs, and long-term maintenance. So the area has limited usability in terms of an active parkland and primarily serves as an environmental protection area and drainage infrastructure. Accepting these lands would also introduce ongoing maintenance obligations and introduce potential liability for the village. So staff suggests retaining the lands as private ownership with current environmental protections with the addition of alternative benefits contemplated in the OCP, such as securing trail access through the easements, through the site towards existing village trails identified surrounding properties, or other proposals to be explored with the applicant moving forward. The proposed panhandle lots are also feasible, but would require design considerations to ensure adequate emergency access and overhead clearance to allow for emergency access to the lots for fire apparatus. So council approval will be required to waive minimum frontage requirements to this regard as well, as per the Local Government Act. And then finally, there are some zoning and site-specific considerations. The bylaw would need to be updated to remove the equestrian uses in the zone, and to reflect a new comprehensive development plan based on the suggested proposal. Additionally, there's accessory building encroachment on the proposed Lot 1 that will need to be resolved through either easements and a variance or the complete removal of the accessory building. And so council or staff will work with the applicant to find a solution for that. So overall, it's a slight increase to existing density. However, there is outstanding considerations that staff have concerns with, and I think further direction from council would help us to go back to the applicant and explore additional proposal.
Good. Thank you. I'll open up for council for questions and comments. Councilor Weber.
I'm just having a little bit of trouble understanding what's going on here, but how is this going to compare to, say, other CDs of the time? I mean, there's supposed to be a substantial give of land back to the village, whether it's green space or active park space or whatever. Does this sort of fall in line? Like, I know this was the very first CD. It doesn't really back in line with CDs of the time, then I could kind of get my head around it.
Yeah, through the chair, it's hard to say as it is the first CD zone, and it's unique in the way that the provided open space was retained as common space and a covenant, but part of the open space was still utilized as a secondary use, equestrian use.
Yeah.
So it's a weird one, whereas a lot of it to be proposed as the private parcels, strata parcels, would have been used by the property owners at the time anyways.
Right.
However, there is an overall reduction in the open space proposed in the plan.
So
that's-
there's
those
more
are-
access for the regular people.
But
in the
more
village.
access for public access that is being proposed.
So that's a
So that's
benefit.
that's the, yeah, proposed benefit.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Trowbridge.
Yes, so as a follow-up to Councillor Wevering, that was a bit problematic for me as well, because we typically get 30% of the land mass, and that accrues over to the village to do what they wish. In this case, the benefit would go back presumably to the 6 owners that surround the parcel, I'm guessing, given that it's common ownership now. So I don't see a significant gain for the village at large. I also am concerned, first of all, I like to say yes to things as much as possible, but this one concerns me. I wouldn't want to see the village take ownership of these wetlands with the pond, the proposed park, which basically has a pond in the middle of it. It's a functional drainage structure. I think it goes underneath Alpine and dumps into the ditch. I could see liabilities for the village for maintenance for anything that happens. So if there's going to be further work by staff to see if we can make this function, a deal breaker for me would be accepting any liability on the park. I'm also, and I saw in here that we have an acceptance of panhandles, but over the years we've tried to avoid panhandles as much as possible. And I think Chief Sharp has indicated that nothing less than a drive of 6 meters paved, which would mean 12 meters paved to access the 2 lots? Or does that mean one drive and then a lot and a lot?
Through the chair, so the 6 meter wide, as from my understanding with conversations with the chief, is that it's per panhandle access. In this case, there's separate accesses on alternate sides of the common property, so each of them would have to be 6 meters wide for
So
access.
would it be a common 6 in and then split to the 2? Is that what you're saying?
No, the 6 meter wide would be part of the panhandle of a Bearland straddle lot to be proposed,
Of each one?
of each one. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's also currently an environmental preservation area. So, you know, I don't know entirely what that means. I suppose we would have to do some assessment to see what that means. But if we are diminishing, removing, or altering the environmental preservation area, I would have a problem with that as well. And there's a water course protection development permit there. Yeah, to me, there's quite a bit of further homework to do before we do anything with this. So those are my comments for now.
Councillor Cryer, and then I'll move on to Councillor Richardson.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor McEwen. I'm going to echo some of what Councillor Wevering and Councillor Trowbridge said. I would definitely like to see some more work on this so that we could make it work out for the landowner in the village. But a few things that caught my attention is, of course, the pond and the ownership of that. Further to the testing and the assessments that would need to be done, the environmental assessment, the stormwater plan, the arborist report, the safety concerns with the panhandle, definitely something that we'd have to look at. I like the idea of trail connectivity, if we can work with the neighboring landowner to get more connectivity on our trails. And then also, there was something in the report about the arena and that it obstructs or goes on to, I don't know if that has to do with the actual, if it has to do with what the arborist report would show or with the arena and the fact that it may be removed, but there was just some questions there. But just a lot of things I think that need to be clarified and worked on in order to move forward.
Thanks. Move on to Councillor Richardson.
Echoing some of the things said before, I was trying to figure it out, what exactly it is. And my summary is it's a CD within a CD, which is there's this green space and they want to CD the green space. And therefore we get 0.3 of the green space. To me, that's a non-starter. If we want to do a CD, it should be roughly to today's standard, which means you take the 3.055 acres of the current lots, the 2.15 acres of the green space, you add them together, you multiply that by 0.3, and that's how much land should come back to the village as park. So that's 1.56 acres instead of 0.68, so it's, you know, another full acre. There's also the 50% lift that we tend to go along with. As there's really no development charges, that's essentially pure profit, which, as Councillor Trowbridge said, probably goes to the existing 6. But, you know, 50% lift could be a good deal for Anmore. It might not be very happy for them because they're looking at a different payday, because it could be on the order of $3 million or something along those lines. But if it was entertained as a CD zone of the full 5.2 acres from sort of today's standards and the way we've done the recent ones, I'd be okay, but there's a whole bunch of work to do so. As proposed now, which is a CD within a CD, and fundamentally no land given to the village for the original CD, I'm against.
Good. Thanks. It was interesting reading a lot of the old documentation. It was like a trip through memory lane through Anmore, seeing a lot of these people sign off on some of this. I just want to clarify a couple points. So the total parcel that was created by Herb Mukel at the time was 5.2 acres.
Just to clarify, that's the proposal, current proposal. So that's the 8 bare land stratas rather than the 6 bare land stratas. So there was actually below the 1.5.
So what I see in front here with this plan, strata plan, it was 5.2 acres, which goes from Sunnyside Road to...
Oh, the total area?
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, 5.2 acres, okay. You know, when this was put in, there was a lot of equestrian activity up here. And it was a community benefit. It wasn't clearly defined in regards to things, in regards to what it offered. But I can tell you now that, because I go by there every once in a while, the barn is about ready to fall down. So something needs to be done with this property. And it's kind of a bit of a no man's land right now, because at least we're seeing something that could happen to here. But the other thing I will have to stress is I am all about consistency. And our CD policy is very consistent, and it has to be maintained consistently as it moves forward. So to me, one of the big things would be the 1.56 acres as part of the 30%. Now with that though, you know, a portion of that could be given up as cash to alleviate, but also some of these parcels could be also maybe not half acres. They could be reduced down to third acres as well to give you the same yield. I don't think there's much value difference between third acres and half acres to be able to get the yield to make this work. I have to tell you that there are some challenges. I think the fire department one was a good thing that needs to be worked out. The drainage ditch that is there, it's interesting now that it has an environmental aspect to it, because again, it wasn't there previously. It was Herb put it in, and I remember Herb talking to me about it. And now, because it has nice bushes around it, it's considered a nutrient provider for the streams and that. So, but again, coming from my parks background, I don't necessarily look at that as a very difficult hurdle to get over, because I look at some of the other parks that we've taken in. I look at the park between Lancaster Court and Thompson, right along a creek. It actually gives people an opportunity to walk along there, see the creek, be public stewards of the creek. I believe that this area, if we take out the campground, is actually very is in big need of a little playground and that. But I do concern some of the concerns of councillors as to regards to the safety, so I think that could be worked out. But I think, you know, there would also have to be parking there, because for some reason Alpine is so narrow, and I don't know why. Again, that was, you know, before we were involved. Now we keep a certain thing. It's tough to even pass an Amazon truck when you go down there now and stuff. So I think the park could actually be created with, you know, maybe benches around this. I do worry about the liability because, again, as we just talked about, the financial challenges that the village faces, bringing on an asset like that we would have to maintain is a challenge. But I also know that if this were to remain some sort of a strata, then the strata could maybe be responsible for the upkeep on it. But, you know, to possibly go to a 1 to 1.3 acre park with this waterway in there, sometimes it's interesting. People on residence will actually pay a lot of money to have a water feature on their property. And here there is one somewhat naturally, but I would like to get some more details as to, do we have any of the engineering documents of this was put in by Herb at the request of the village? I remember him telling me that. So do we have any of that documentation, Mr. Boyd?
Through the chair, not to my knowledge. I can go back through and look through some of the files, but
Yeah.
kind of fairly familiar. You got a little bit of
Yeah,
information?
to the chair.
Yep.
Yeah, so I had access to old subdivision files, and it shows all the sort of
There you
drainage flows into the pond and infrastructure contemplated for the subdivision. So we do have old drawings for the subdivision itself, including all the lots and drainage impacts.
Yeah,
Drainage flows.
from what Herb said to me is that the houses, because it's fairly level there, needed a place for the water, their rainwater to drain into, and that's why this is created here. It then goes underneath, as Councillor Trowbridge, underneath Alpine, and then it connects into a creek system. So I certainly think there's more work to be done here, but I certainly wouldn't be, and again, to me, it has to be consistent. So if it wasn't the full 30%, there would have to be a compensation for that 30% of the land towards the financial. And as Councillor Richardson pointed out, you know, we have that lift element as well and that. So, but I think there is a great potential here. And I personally really think a small neighborhood park with a small playground equipment, and that would be a real great asset for this area, especially when you have Countryside, which has so many families in it, and they don't have that facility on their grounds as well. And certainly we have the lake right next door, but it's not the same thing as a little playground. So it could be an opportunity down the road. So I guess from what I'm hearing from everybody, more work needs to be done, but I think there's you know, things to look at down the road. Do you have an option? Do you have a recommendation?
Yeah, through the chair. So I do have a recommendation that involves further input and even referrals to the committee.
Okay.
So should council feel like maybe just the first recommendation is appropriate for now, that's also an option to break it apart. Otherwise, we can go for the full recommendation and also have committee eyes on the proposal before going back to the applicant for further input.
So just simply the recommendation would be that staff report back to council prior to further consideration of the zoning bylaw amendment application for CD1 zone on the following considerations from what's been told here. Is that Councillor Trowbridge?
I like the idea of referring it to the committees.
Yep.
I think that's a good idea, and then we'll have more to work with when it comes back.
100%. And a committee referral at the end of that as well. Councillor Weber.
I like the idea of going to the committees, but I'd like to see a little bit more work done before we go to the committees.
Yeah. So a little bit more detail coming back, i.e. the fire department, a bit more with the environmental thing, recognizing what the CD policy is, and then bringing it back, and then we could do a referral to the various committees, if that makes sense. Did you capture that?
Absolutely not. Let's restate all of those
Ms.
now.
Essen, go ahead.
Okay, if I can please get those 4 items. And just to clarify, I'm removing the committee referral part, correct?
We're going to defer the committee referral after we get some more information back.
Perfect, okay, then I understood that correctly. Okay, those 4 items, please.
I have a list.
Okay.
Okay.
So I've got the panhandle, then testing and assessing environmental concerns, then the water course, development protection permit, amount of amenity space, the percentage, and how that relates to the entire 5.2 acres, both in terms of the park and any other CAC contribution related to the lift, safety and arborists, arena condition, the CD within the CD zone, when that's all part of the percentage, and I think that lot size consideration. Does that capture everything?
So I think, so emergency access, environmental assessment, complying with our CD policy, compliance with our CD policy, and the fourth one, that's the five, yeah, that's, no, that's, we've got that in the environmental. I think that's, it's just three, isn't it then?
The lot size, I think, was another one.
That would be in our CD policy, wouldn't it? Yeah, okay. Okay, 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 so the lot size as well as these, as well as infrastructure. Okay. Do we capture all that? Yeah, I put environmental, yeah, okay. So with that being said, can you give it a shot?
Here's what I have. Testing and assessing the environmental concerns, lot size considerations, emergency access, and compliance with the CD policy.
Okay. I think that covers it in general terms, very general terms, yeah. No? Yeah, yeah. Well, everything is in...
I'll go back to the minutes and
Yeah,
presentation.
okay,
I'll have word by word.
So it's been moved, seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We'll now move on to 9B, proposed zoning amendments, basement exemption, and single detached dwelling floor area cap. Mr. Joseph.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So the purpose of this report is to seek council direction on potential amendments to the zoning bylaw related to basement exemptions and floor area ratio in the RS1 and infill zones. So through ongoing review of the bylaw and proposed developments, staff have identified areas where current regulations may require updates or amendments. The proposed updates are intended to improve clarity and ensure regulation functions as intended when contemplated. With respect to the basement exemption, the bylaw currently allows some or all basement floor area to be excluded from the floor area calculation, or the FAR, depending on how much of the basement is above average finished grade. The intent of this provision is to exclude portions of the building floor area from the maximum floor area ratio that do not contribute to the perceived massing of a building. However, the current wording does not explicitly limit the number of partially exposed basement stories to be eligible for exemption. So as a result, there's a potential for the interpretation that multiple levels of basements would qualify for the exemptions. This may occur more prominently on steeper slopes, where the slope can naturally lead to multiple exposed lower levels of a building. And to address this, staff are recommending a clarification that only one partially exposed basement could qualify for a basement exemption. Any sub-basements that are completely buried could still be eligible for a full floor area exemption, as they do not contribute to the apparent massing of the building. And then second is that with respect to floor area ratio, the current regulations in the RS1 zone permit a maximum FAR of 0.25. On a 1 acre basis, this allows for a house of approximately 10,890 square feet. However, because FAR directly relates to lot size, significantly larger homes could be constructed on larger parcels throughout the RS1 zone, as well as infill zone. So to provide greater clarity and consistency, staff are recommending the introduction of a maximum house cap of 10,890 square feet, regardless of lot size. I would say irrespective of the cap, language could also provide for the allowance of additional floor area above the cap where there is eligibility for floor area exemptions contemplated in the bylaw. So this cap reflects the maximum already achievable on a 1 acre parcel. And based on past reviews of building permits over the last 5 years, this amendment would not reduce the typical, or 5 years. All the building permits issued in the last 5 years are in compliant with this cap. So it would not reduce the typical development potential of the village, but would prevent excessively large homes on larger lots. Overall, these amendments would reinforce the semi-rural character and provide a bit additional clarity to the zoning bylaw and transparency for property owners looking to build in Anmore. So should council wish to proceed, staff will bring forward a formal bylaw amendment for consideration in the near future based on additional council input. Thank you.
Good. Open up for council. I'll just start off. I'm a little curious as to why this is coming to council at this point, Mr. Joseph. I recall probably about 6 years ago when some of the construction started happening on the hillside, and there was an incredible challenge about finding heights, about defining heights. And so I called a meeting, and we had several members of the building community, engineers, architects came into that meeting because it was very, very challenging as to how, I think it was Martin Gregg at the time was our approving officer as well as the building inspector, and there was a wholesome discussion about how we were going to calculate heights, because on hillside it's very, very challenging, and we had, like I said, we had engineers, we had architects in there, and we came to a formula which I think everybody kind of agreed to, and it was fine. So I'm just kind of curious why this is coming forward right now. I'm not in support of this, just so we're clear, at all. And I did find one of your references in here to infill, about the fact that an infill lot at 2 acres could create, I think you had said, about a 22,000 square foot house at 2 acres. The problem is infill doesn't go up to 2 acres, it's under 2 acres to be eligible for infill, because at 2 acres they could just subdivide their property. And I guess where I'm having a real fundamental problem is that if you have a 2 acre parcel or an 1.5 acre parcel, you could still subdivide it and still have the same massing of construction on those lots. What we're forcing people to do is to subdivide their property or rezone their property through infill. And I don't think that's right. Some people want to have that big spread to be able to put a barn or some of these other elements to it. But I've got a bunch of detailed notes here, but I just wanted to sort of give an overview of the challenges that we had with this basement exemption and that at the time, and how it seemed to be working really well. And that's why I was a little bit shocked that this was coming forward at this point in time. So I'll open up for council. This is very technical. It's challenging. Councillor Richardson.
Yeah, I echo a little bit there. But, you know, I'm an example guy, and I don't quite know. So there's that 5-story coming down the hill thing up on Pinnacle now. How much exemption do they have? Or, you know, they don't need it because the lot's so big? And likewise, there's the proposal, I think it's called Treehouse, which somebody's merged 2 lots together. It's a 2 acre site. And they want to build, I think, 25,000 square feet or some crazy thing. So that would remove that. And then overall, if it's below grade and you don't see it, I think it's fair game to some degree. If they want to do 6 stories underground, power to them in some ways. My bigger concern is for the townhouses that which they have very high floor area ratios, at least in the current proposed zoning for the hillside, that there be no basement exemption or below grade exemption for those type of structures. And it seems to me as we get smaller in lots, that should be more important than on the bigger lots. So I'm a little confused. I'd like to see it on townhomes, but I'm not so sure I'd like to see it on RS1 and infill. Like, why not CD in general? Or some limitation of some other sort. Like, I'm trying to gauge the wheres and the whys.
Yeah, so through the chair, the basement exemption would be sort of a separate from the floor area ratio cap. Basement exemption would apply to any lot and any unit type. It's just a matter of, because of slopes and because it's based on average finish grade, the grading and the building design can be manipulated as such to provide for average finish grade above multiple stories of exposed basement, which creates apparent massing on a lot and would qualify for further exemptions. So that's kind of the problem for the basement exemption, and that could be done through townhomes, regular homes, large lots, smaller lots. It's just a matter of grading and building design manipulation for finished grade.
So just for my own clarity, if you did a 5-story thing coming down the hill, you could essentially bury half of each floor under it, and those halves underneath don't count, it's half the building. But they're actually sticking out so it looks like massing, is what you're saying.
Correct.
But if you buried it completely under, you wouldn't see it.
That's correct.
But, so the floor area ratio cap is only infill and RS1, and the below grade exemption massing thing would apply to everything,
Correct. Yeah.
which would be very applicable for any hillside development.
Any and all hillside developments.
Okay, okay.
Councillor Trowbridge.
It's, I mean, it's not too dissimilar to what we have now, except for the way it's calculated as I see it. When I went back and looked at the old zoning, it's the natural grade. And if you were a cutaway of a house on a grade, the portion below the natural is exempt now, and the portion above is not. So it's working similar, isn't it? Or no?
Yeah, so the basement exemptions are based on the average finish grade, which is a bit more, could be the lower of average or natural. However, as it currently is stated, it's average finish grade, which could be manipulated.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess let's play this out. So you're saying to put a cap on of 10,000, whatever the number, 10,800 square feet of a buildable on a 1 acre. If somebody is set with a 1.3 acre parcel, they can't times that by 0.25. Then you're actually punishing them because their developable rights are being taken away.
Yeah, so through the chair, it's a matter of sort of clarifying what the form and character desirability for the villages as a whole. Because for the same example, you can say a 4-acre parcel can have 0.25 FAR, or an 8-acre parcel. And so you have
Under our bylaws,
building
anything
permit.
above 3 acres can actually have 2 principal residents on it.
yes, separate residents, yeah.
Without having to subdivide. So I'm at a complete loss as to being able to support this at that. And I think the basement, we had, was it a year ago that we actually discussed this in pretty in-depth? Like, I'm fine with the way the basement is there because that's when we started talking about basement suites and carriage houses and that. So I'll open it up to Councillor Wevering.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Mayor McEwen on this. There was a lot of discussion about this, and I don't know if our policies, bylaws can cover every situation that we can possibly imagine, but I thought what we came up with was pretty good, and it seemed to be working to me. So I'm just, and maybe I'm not understanding what's changing here so much. Like, give me an example of where this new system would affect, like, give me an example of a lot or a development where this would affect what we already currently have.
Yeah, so like an example would be whether a basement, sub-basement, and a sub-sub-basement is proposed, where the average finished grade has been manipulated so that the sub-basement and the sub-sub-basement are proportionally or somewhat exposed or, whatever, and they get exemptions. So it just, it just leads to a very large house than what is contemplated for the FAR and sort of the form and character that you get from the ratio of the lot. So the apparent massing becomes larger. So during construction of the basement exemption, there's a lot of conversations of if it's completely buried, we don't care, full exemption. So there is examples where, well, they're not completely buried, and so can we apply the exemption to multiple stories? And that's kind of where staff have a hard time interpreting, and we need more clarification on.
But isn't that still covered by our existing policy? So say you have a sub-basement and a basement, and say a third of the basement is sort of in ground, and 2/3 of the sub-basement is in ground, but they're both sticking out, so they're exposed. I mean, really, the part that's in the back, we're not really seeing anyways, and it's sort of the same difference. Really, what's exposed is not.
Yeah, so there could be a difference between looking at a lot that goes uphill versus one that goes downhill. Of course, the back downhill, you can't see it.
Yeah,
And the back going uphill, you can't see it, but it's the front that is exposed to that basement.
right. I have a tough time with this one.
I just have couple more comments, and I'll go over to Councillor Richardson. I personally don't have any issue with people going 2 floors down, 3 floors down, as long as the engineering can prove it out, and there's no issues. If they want to build a safe room, a bowling alley 2 stories down, or, God forbid, they put a car elevator in there and store a bunch of cars down there, I'm totally fine. And that's why I think we exempt basement suites, because we don't see them as we drive around. So I personally don't have an issue with that. The biggest concern that I get from a lot of people, especially with infill, and where you're talking about the grade, is because we have not changed the FAR on infill. It's still at 0.25, or compared to the CD zones, which are 0.30. And that does cause some problems for some people in that, and I think that would be something to look at.
Maybe reframe it as a question, and I can give you an answer. Reframe it just as a question, because maybe I'm not understanding.
Oh, okay.
For infill, the infill portion of it.
Yeah. I'll move on to Councillor Richardson.
Just first thing, infill is 0.3 floor area ratio, isn't it? I think we changed that.
I think it's a ladder system, so I think it's based on the lot size.
Yeah.
Which is,
Okay.
But I think I'll just touch on previous. So in reality, to be eligible for infill rezoning, the minimum lot size is 1/3 acre. There's no maximum.
It can only go up to,
But
2
the,
acres and above is not
eligibility
eligible.
is around 8,000 square meters in the OCP. So you can rezone for infill. However, we have no mechanism to require you to subdivide, but you can still sort of have the cap. That's why the infill was also flagged, just as a, if you're going to go the route of a cap, then you might want to also consider infill. Yeah.
Councillor Richardson.
Okay, I'm with Council Weverink. I'm trying to visualize coming down the hill, and it's a weird exemption, like if you're, most of the basement is like below only 4 foot of the basement is exposed and it's fully exempt, right? And I think this is where it catches up with us, because it used to be that it was completely proportional across. But a drawing would help, like in this case, like take a 20% slope or a 45% slope or whatever we have, like that example, and draw out how the massing looks in the 2 cases. Regarding floor area ratio cap on lots bigger than an acre, I'm sort of against that. I spoke on that, I think, when we were limiting the number of accessory buildings, and it's personal for me. I have a big lot and I have 2 accessory buildings, and I can't do anything because they're legally non-conforming, so I can't play with those. I can change my house size, but if I want to build something, I should be able to build something. Nobody sees it, and I got lots of land. So, I can't even build a barn. So constantly cramming down the larger lots doesn't make sense to me. I do think about the fact that if it's more than, I think, 1.5 hectares or whatever, you can build 2 single-family residences and skip the whole carriage house thing, because I can't build a carriage house because of my 2 accessory buildings. There's all these weird little things that are coming into play, but the below-grade exemptions, like how they would play out in massing, it'd be interesting to see. And I think that's going to come into play on the hillside. I've said this before. I think the 2,500 square foot townhomes are actually going to be like 3,500 or 4,000 as they bury them into the hillside. But, is that something we want or don't want? That's a different discussion. But the look and feel is important, and an example of how this works, I think, in a clear picture would help.
Anybody? Just one final question. So the proposed definitions regarding basement, exposed basement on a slope and exposed basement on a flat lot, are they exactly the same?
To the chair, Yeah, because it's based on finish grade. So if, of course, the finish grade's flat, it'll be based on just sort of a flat horizon. A finish grade is based on a slope. Of course, that's where the manipulation happens. And it's an aggregate of the elevations of all sides of a building, which not are always 4 sides of a building. It could be many. So that's how it could be manipulated.
So I don't see any more comment. We don't have a motion on the table, but I certainly feel that we're all somewhat aligned in regards to if it ain't broke, don't fix it, so to speak. So do we have to put a motion forward and vote it down, or should we? I personally think that we should, if we are going to, I would go with option number, where is it here? Yeah, I would go with option, the last, that staff proceed with amendments to the zoning bylaw with changes identified by council in relation to infill and all other things with FAR ratio, so that they all kind of, because I've heard from many people, they aren't all aligned. And, you know, if you have a half-acre parcel, you're allowed a FAR an infill of 0.25. If it's a third of an acre, you're at 0.3. And just maybe just outline some consistency between the floor area ratios between all of those smaller lots. I'm fine with the 1 acre being at 0.25, but I think there should be some consistency, because I also think there's some similarities between them all. So, Councillor Boyd, or Mr. Boyd.
So I just to try and describe something to the council, the reason that Mr. Joseph brought this forward. If you've got a steep hill, and the way that our definition currently works, our definition on a basement right now is if it's on average 4 feet underground, then you get it exempt, right? Well, what happens when you're on a steep slope? This is 0% covered. Sorry, this would be 0% covered. The back would be 100% covered. So 0 feet under, 8 feet under, it means you get all of that basement completely exempt. And because we don't have a definition of how many basements you're allowed, you could actually, in theory, see a building that looks like 8 stories, but in fact, it actually has 7 basements because of the way that our grade actually currently works. So I'd recommend the council maybe allow staff to bring back some pictures to kind of convey what the issue is here.
Yeah.
Just so it's like someone just said it, pictures 1,000 words here. I think it would describe to you a little bit better on one of the issues we see going forward.
You know, and that's what I was asking. I agree that I think some pictures with some diagrams to clearly detail it would be wise here. I think it's completely different from, which I just asked was the same as a flat one, because I don't agree with that one. So maybe there's 2 differentials in regards to, we specify a certain grade, and then the basement we had a grade to the basement exemptions on it. I'd be more than willing to look at that. I'm not willing to look at anything regarding the capping of the size on parcels and that, but I do agree that I think everybody mentioned here, not an issue with digging down, but you do bring up a very valid point. So maybe we should just defer this until further, and have further discussion. And is that, yeah. Sure.
Yeah, I'd like you to bring a really worst case scenario of, you know, this is what can exist under what we currently allow, and then these are the proposed changes, and this is what it would look like with our proposed changes. I think that'd be a real black and white example for us that we could get our heads around.
I think what you just brought up, and thank you for bringing that up, is there is a new element of construction that's going to be going on in this village. Relates back to the blasting that we're starting to see now on where houses are being built on steeper slopes. So I think it's something to bring up, and maybe we amend what we already have in that. So thank you.
Yeah, in relation to that, maybe, Hugh, what I would say is once upon a time when the bylaw was written, I think the cost per square foot of the value of that per square foot was a lot less, so people didn't blast so much. But now that square footage number's gone up, it becomes economically more viable to blast more and more rock to create more and more square footage. Good. And that's just something that I don't think was contemplated.
Good. Okay, so thank you. Motion to defer. Move second. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We'll now move on to the new business. 11A, Dr. Hal Weinberg, Spirit Park report from our engineering consultant is attached. This is the extension of Ravenswood.
Thank you, Mayor McEwen. So the purpose of this report tonight is to provide Council with an update with a detailed design for Dr. Howell Weinberg Spirit Park expansion and upgrade project, following Council's consideration and direction from Council at the Feb 3rd, 2026 regular Council meeting. This report provides the updated preferred option and phasing consideration for Council's endorsement to initiate a formal process. The drawings are contained in the back of this report. However, I do have like a larger set of PDFs available that I can refer to if Council have questions after the fact that Lena will bring up. Lena, can you go to the second page? The first page is not very exciting. It's removals of what we removed from
I
the
couldn't
park.
hear a word you said.
Oh, you could
I'm
not? Sorry. So I'll go through the report, but the drawings are included in your report.
Yeah.
But if Council have questions afterwards, I can refer to this drawing, and we can kind of go through any
Yeah,
questions
this
you
is
may have.
a good, yeah, perfect.
Okay. Just a bit of background. So following engagement and Council direction Feb 4th, 2025, Council passed the following resolution. The Council received the report dated Jan 30th entitled Dr. Howell Weinberg Spirit Park Project Update for information, and that Council directs staff to complete a third design option that includes grading and lawn area, expanded parallel parking along Ravenswood, and a parking lot that has between 50 and 80 stalls with associated replanting, and to keep the gazebo in its current location. And that Council directs staff to phase the project to spend up to $2 million for Dr. Howell Weinberg Spirit Park. Okay, in response to that, staff directed ISL Engineering to complete a refined design supported by updated surveys, civil engineering and landscape architectural drawings, a detailed cost estimate, and also being prepared to reflect the current market conditions and proposed scope of the work. So for Council consideration tonight, the third design is in front of you, and the main pieces are grading and development of the central lawn area to support the passive recreation and community use, expansion of the parallel parking along Ravenswood Drive, construction of a new parking lot of 54 stalls. This would include drainage infrastructure and landscaping, retention of the gazebo in its current location, and integration of landscape features including planting, seating areas, and pathways, and a small gathering fire pit. The current Class B cost estimate for the full build-out is approximately $2.4 million, including contingency and GST. The estimate reflects significant site servicing requirements, including earthworks, drainage, roadworks, and parking lot construction, which represent a substantial portion of the overall cost. So one of the key cost drivers in here is earthworks and excavation. For a note for Council, if we removed all the excavation from site and didn't reuse on site, it would cost an additional $1.2 million. So we're looking to re-landscape and regrade the area to save a significant amount of money. Obviously, other large portions are the roadworks and parking lot construction, stormwater management infrastructure. I've put in brackets here parking lot drainage, but in relation to the member of public earlier, yes, there will be drainage infrastructure in relation to the further down, which would include Ravenswood, and the portion of land which I like to call the orphan park south of Ravenswood, that there would be, along there, that's right. So we'll make sure.
There is a drainage right away that runs right in behind there anyway, so it'll be.
So we'll make sure the consideration in the grading exercise, the water is directed away from the properties into appropriate drainage channels. Okay, and then also within ISL's estimate was a contingency of 25%, totaling $460,000. Okay, so there's a few considerations for phasing. If the approved budget doesn't go forward, what we might be able to do is decrease some of the landscaping features and then enhance planting and forest restoration, and just concentrate on site grading and lawn area, the parking lot construction, and the required roadworks. Generally, the schedule currently, if Council provide direction tonight, we would look to complete the final design in May 21st, 2026. We'd issue it for tender within a couple of weeks for June 3rd, and the tender period would go through June, and tender evaluation would happen beginning of July, and then we bring the contract award back to Council, which is typically consistent with a large project like this, for Council endorsement finally on the July 7th meeting, with construction to start following. And then the construction would take approximately 6 months. This is where I have to give an apologies. There's a a typo here in relation to the request from capital shortfall. So I'll get through the financial considerations here. So community amenity fund contributions currently available are approximately 1.2 million. The climate action funding which is available to us is $185,000. We already approved by council is the Ravenswood budget of 285. That totals $1.669267 currently. That's what we have earmarked currently. So other considerations for council are to either use the community works grant. However, I would point to council that this has actually been included in the following report for the public works yard. Okay, so in order to fund this project, we have a capital shortfall of approximately $530,000, which would need to be reallocated from the capital reserves to this project, to complete this project. As capital reserves are maintained for asset management and maintenance, increasing the value of the capital asset at Spirit Park will require an increase to the capital asset levy in future years. So I'll just give a short breakdown to what that means. When we put on a significant asset onto our books, we have to calculate how much that asset would take to replace it in the following years. So it does have an impact to taxation when we introduce a significant piece of asset to the municipality. So that's why that note is within there. Okay. So the staff would recommend currently to council that council endorse the preferred design option and direct staff to proceed with a tender preparation based on a phased implementation strategy aligned within the approved budget. However, if you would like me to read the recommendation for council?
Sure.
To follow? Okay. That the design option, including the report entitled Dr. Hal Weinberg Spirit Park Preferred Option, dated May 1st, 2026, be endorsed for the purpose of undertaking a formal tender process. And this is the important amendment here. And that a project budget of 2.2 million inclusive of Ravenswood realignment budget be approved from the following, and then from the, a realignment budget and $530,000 be approved from the capital reserve fund. Good. So we're looking for an additional $530,000 from the capital reserve fund.
Could I get someone to move that?
Oh, sorry.
Oh.
Sorry, through the chair, we also do not have the funding approved to allocate the CACs or the climate action funding on this. So those amounts for the community amenity contribution would be on page 77 of your agenda. So that's the 1.198705. The climate action funding would be the 185,190. So it would be the three things: the community amenity contribution, the climate action funding, and the additional capital reserve funding that we're looking for approval.
Okay, so they'd be added into your motion.
Yes.
Can I get someone to move it, second it? Just have a few quick questions and I'll open up to council. I noticed a couple things in here. The electrical that we already have in the park, I didn't notice anything in the budget here about reworking it with the new design.
We'll be maintaining it.
It'll just say status quo then?
Yeah, there'll be some small amendments, such as we might need to rerun a little bit of conduit, but we intend to maintain the electrical.
Not enhance it at all?
Not enhance it, just maintain it.
Okay. What about irrigation?
So we'll introduce some watering points, but not a full irrigation system. A full irrigation would add roughly another $200,000 to $3,000 onto this. So we'll be looking for operations to help with the watering system.
Is there anything in here about that electrical pole in the very far corner that's on the neighboring property?
No, we have not addressed that one in this.
That's not part of this?
That's not part of this.
Okay. Is replanting sufficient at 180K? Because this council's been getting some grief over a lack of trees on there.
Yeah, so yes, but it's all predicated on smaller trees being planted. And so it will take that extra time for those trees to mature out and have a better canopy within here.
It would be interesting to get, because again, people bring this up quite often. be interesting to see what an increase in the budget to get more substantial trees may be in some areas.
Sure.
You know, just, and that would be something that I would add. And the one last clarification is that you've outlined 54 parking spots.
Yeah.
I don't think that's nearly sufficient. Would it be challenging to make it in the 80s?
Under
Like,
this
it
budget,
looks-
yes.
This looks beautiful with the, you know, the trees in the middle of the parking lot, but I'm just wondering, with that same footprint, could it be configured to be able, and the way I look at that is, you know, just after all the calls I received over the weekend, and what's happening right now is people are using this as a point to park, walk across the street, get on the bus. We could use this as an incredible revenue generator and charge people $20 for the day parking, for example, when they go up on the bus.
So I would have to go back to the design team on what the impacts would look like for an 80-stall parking lot. Could it be achieved? Yes, there's plenty of land on you know, this area to do it. One of the things I would say, one of the reasons for the circulation of the parking lot, we have taken into consideration fire access for the hub hole coming in through here, so we have to maintain kind of certain aisle widths. And what have you for that.
I would rely on Councillor Cryer, but I do know that parking is a big, this seems very short to me, and that, especially with even like talking with some of the other facilities and that. So open up for council. I'm really excited about getting this moving. So, and I'll have my last comment. Go ahead, Councillor Weber.
I mean, it looks like this is kind of the bare minimum. There's not much more we could scratch off the list, so I would love to see this get going. I'm okay with the parking. I don't know, I think turning it into revenue generating 20 bucks a day, I don't know if I'd be in favor of that. And I don't want the Spirit Park to be all parking. I think it's adequate. No, I kind of like it the way it is. I like what I see. I think I like the idea of bigger trees being planted, but if it puts the budget over, then, you know, trees will grow eventually, especially cedars. They grow pretty fast. Before you know it, there's that whole place is going to be treed. So I kind of like it the way it is.
Councillor Trowbridge.
Yeah, I'm with Councillor Weverink. I, by and large, like it the way it is. I just want to be certain that where the outlet of Ravenswood is, we've appropriately graded so that there's clear vision, and that whatever trees we do plant, they're planted deep inside the property to make sure there's no visual obstruction. I'm sure that that's all been traffic engineered, but it's a critical piece for our village.
Yeah, so in relation to that, yes, you'll see within the design there's no tree in and around the curb returns there for the visibility reasons, to make sure you can see up and down the hillside. So,
Perfect.
And there's a significant amount of regrading, so excavation, that needs to be done in and around Ravenswood. And that's one of the significant impacts of this project, is the amount of excavation required. And if we had to remove it, it's a significant amount of money. So we're looking to regrade and, you know, put the dirt in certain areas so we don't have to remove it from site.
Good.
Councillor.
Sorry.
Sorry, I thought you were, sorry, go ahead.
It's okay?
Yeah.
Okay. The contingency, 460,000 approximately, do you anticipate that getting absorbed in the build? Like, is the contingency really there?
Maybe I'll throw my ISL staff under the bus a little bit here. I don't think we really need the 25% review in this. It isn't actually carried in the overall budget of the 2.2. If you added up everything, it's actually, I think it's 2.3. So I don't believe we would use up all of the allocated contingency currently. So that could be somewhere we could, if the tender comes in, and when I could bring it back to council during the tender process, I can say, hey, we have $200,000 left over. Would you like us to introduce X, Y, and Z?
You've answered my question as to why I was asking it. If there is any left over, I'd like to allocate it to improvements that we've had to cut back.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm good.
Okay. Councillor Cryer.
Thank you. Goodness. So parking, yes, it would be great if there were more parking, but I think that we do live in the world of Uber, and as much as I would like it to be a revenue generating, I'm not sure about that, but that's something I think we could consider later. I like it. I do agree that if we have any extra money, if we could do some of those enhancements that we took away. Could you, though, just confirm how much money, so you want 2.2, which is inclusive of Ravenswood plus 530,000? But what about those other numbers you said?
Yeah, so I'll reread
Say
this.
it again.
The ask tonight was for council to endorse using the CACs, which was let's call it the 1.2 million. That would be the first line in the financial consideration. The next one was allocation of the Climate Action Fund of 185,000. Okay, we already have the budget allocated for Ravenswood, which is the 285. So those are the three numbers that we currently have allocated. And so the shortfall that we're asking from the reserve fund is the 2.2 minus that 1.67.
Okay, understood. Okay. Yeah, I'd like it. I'd like to get cracking on it. Yeah, let's get going. Thank you.
If I could just answer one thing for Councillor Cryer there. You talked about, it was one sentence you said about consideration maybe into the future of expansion of the parking lot. I think if that's council's kind of thoughts that you might want to do this into the future, it's good for us to know, to make sure we kind of allow for that to happen in future design if you want to expand this parking lot, instead of incurring a bunch more costs for excavating along the material or something. If we know about it, we can kind of program it out to some degree and be like, okay, if you wanted to, 5 years down the road, you decide you wanted more parking, here's the easy way to do it.
I think I was referring more to having paid parking.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Good. Councillor Richardson.
Yeah, so I was trying to understand what Councillor Cryer was saying on the money, because I was sort of lost. and that's for the first phase only, or that includes phase 2?
So in consideration of this report today, where it talked about phase 1 and phase 2, it would include everything that's on this drawing, so that would be phase 1 and phase 2 in this report.
Okay, so what does phase 1 cost?
So phase 1 is the 2.2 that we're asking for. So just phase 1, sorry, I don't have that broken out currently. I could do some quick math for you. Is it 176? Oh, there you go. Okay.
My concern is, like, this is 2.2 something million here, and if we flip the page more, we got 3.7 million, and we've got fire halls coming of 15 or 17 million, depending how you're slicing it, and it's a lot for a small municipality. So I'm kind of okay with it if it's only like 500K out of capital. I have to admit that I'm completely shocked by some of the numbers in the budget. Like a picnic table costs $8,000. Is it made out of diamond and gold with solid steel struts or something? My God, you can get one for $100. You can get one of those per year for 80 years, and it's the same amount.
What I can answer about that type of municipal infrastructure there is that we buy it to last for a long time. And it's fire retardant. It's all of these things that we make sure it has longevity involved in it. The $100 ones will typically either grow legs or someone will set it on fire and we'll be buying
No,
them.
I understand, but like if I buy a $100 one, I can get a new one every year and burn it at the end of the year for 80 years, right? I can put it in the campfire and I got 80 years. Is my concrete thing going to last 80 years? So there's something out of whack with the budget costs in here. And even the trees at $3,000 a piece, like I'm ripping trees out constantly. And when I look through the list, they're mostly native species. Like I can give you trees of any number constantly and it don't cost $3,000. And I would go the other way, as what people say, bigger trees. I go, let's get a forester in here and let's tree plant from the little tiny guys to save a bunch of money. Like, and we could have, environmental study collaboration with Mossam Creek or something on the reforestation of part of Anmore. And the last comment I said is, the grading is out. Like all that hauling everything away, that's gone, right?
No, it will be remaining on site and we'll be...
Yeah, it's going to stay, the dirt's going to stay here.
Yes.
Okay, we're not hauling...
No, no.
Okay, because,
If we did that, that would cost an additional
okay,
approximately
so we'll make
1.2
little
million.
mounds or something.
Yeah.
But I like even a neighborhood program where we invite people to bring trees of certain species. Because right now I can go down to Port Moody, if I had a Port Moody address, and they give me trees. And they're pretty nice trees based on the guy that I saw walking across the street with it the other day. And so something seems a bit insane on the costing.
So just a few clarifications on the tree cost. So there's a number of things. There's actually only one tree at $3,000. That's where it was like a specimen tree. So that's a large tree that would be installed. When typically around that price, it's like 4 or 5 meters tall. It's a significant tree that's already been. Okay, and then the other one, and then the other ones are smaller plugs. Well, they're not plugs. They're smaller trees at $600. But also included in these numbers is maintenance requirements for the contractor as well, and there's risk associated with it. If they don't take, they have to come back and plot. So it isn't always apples for apples what you could buy off the shelf, because there's other things involved with them.
Okay, thank you.
But like I said, I got trees, I have to go around my lot whacking stuff.
We've heard you've got lots of trees. Councillor Trowbridge.
Yeah, one thing I forgot to mention that was in my notes, the hub, the parking, and the programming between, well, let's say north of Ravenswood, I really like the way that looks. But if we were to look for some added parking, is there an opportunity to push into the south of Ravenswood on that triangle?
Yeah, there is for sure.
So that would be right here.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yes.
We during the community engagement, that was one of the options, that we did actually have some parking down in that area.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I think it's a really good point, because we could add some parking there, and that would be actually specifically for Ravenswood, which is really needed, especially with the, with suites being added down in that area. Couple of things I just wanted to add. Do we have any MRN paving work going on this summer that we could team up with this to get better costing?
Not on MRN funding. We've got multi-user pathway upgrades going forward. So we do have some paving going on.
So we'll be able to consolidate some of it, maybe get.
We're not currently tendering both of the paving packages together.
Okay.
However, what we might find is the same contractor, has a competitive bid because they have all of their equipment.
The other thing I just wanted to mention is that Torca has been pretty involved in this. Well, we don't want to finish the whole park, which would be between Ravenswood and the parking lot. Is there an area that you're going to be working with them in conjunction, that they could leave it as a bit of a blank slate, or when the machinery's there, maybe just move some stuff and because I think there was a real, from what I think all the council has heard, there was a real desire for them to kind of get in and do some elbow work themselves, if they, and just make this sort of little pump track or whatever. For
Yeah, I think what we would say to staff to that is, right now it's kind of a bit of a blank canvas. We just intend to kind of install the trees. And so if council would give Torca the direction to go in and play, per se, that would be a council direction they could always do.
Yeah, and Councillor Trowbridge brought it up, but yeah, I saw the contingency as well. So it's between the contingency and what the actual budget is short, it's approximately about $70,000.
Yeah. So
hopefully that we can make sure that we're watching this very closely, and that we don't have to go into the contingency, and then that we'll be able to come in on budget, and hopefully some of the tenders will come back. But I'm certainly supportive of getting this going as soon as possible. So thank you for all your work that you've done on it, and especially like the committees. I think we've had a couple open house that Carla hosted in that. So looking forward to getting it started. So I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Awesome. Thank you. We'll now move on to 11B Operations Center Upgrade, report dated May 1st. Mr. Boyd, back to you.
Thank you, Mayor McEwen. So the purpose of this report is to provide council options related to the scope, project scope and potential funding sources following the presentation of the feasibility study completed by ISL in collaboration with Jacob Brothers Construction and KP Architecture for the proposed upgrade of the Village of Anmore Operations Center. This report came forward at April 7th, 2026, regular council meeting. Okay, subsequent to direction provided at the January 13th, 2026 regular council meeting, a feasibility report was prepared and presented at council at the April 7th meeting. Recognizing that the feasibility report identified project budget in excess of the current allocated funding, the following direction was provided by Council. The Council received the report dated March 31st, and that staff report back to Council with refined cost estimates and funding strategy and continue with the analysis of the site. So that's what this report is in relation to tonight. It's the second part. So for discussion, this is the cost estimate prepared by the Integrated Project Delivery Team. Identifies a total budget of $3.372 which was broken down as follows. Operations building, approximately $2 million. Works yard upgrades, approximately $550,000. Consultants, $330,000, which got to a subtotal of approximately $2.9 million. And then there was risk allocations of 463, which gave a total budget of $3.372 And then there's also noted that this is within a 10% accuracy. So the existing approved budget under the 2026 budgets included the public works yard and the brine shelter. This totaled up to $1.3 million approximately. Also, staff have reviewed an option for the water DCC fund, which is approximately $300,000. Also, there's investing in community fund grant and community works grant of $217,000. So the current available sourcing that staff have reviewed from different pots is $1.95 million. So the current shortfall is approximately $1.4 million or $1.775 million if you include the 10% contingency. Just a note, it'll come up further, that following the completion of this project, there would be roughly $100,000 recouped from the sale of the existing ATCO trailers. Okay, and we would look to pull the shortfall from the Capital Reserve Fund, which following earlier, that would amount to roughly $8 million based on the approved budget from the Spirit Park. And with this additional cost, it would take the reserve down to $6.6 million roughly if we did not include the 10% contingency at this point in time. If we included the contingency, it would go down to $6.3 million. Okay, so that's if we, so the shortfall is based on if we complete the project as presented to Council in the previous reports, which would include the requirements for the fire hall, the operations yard to have its office moved down into the operational hall that we'd be building, and all the other site upgrades. So an option to perhaps reduce the shortfall would be option 2, would be to reduce the requirements for the fire apparatus accommodation. However, this would save approximately $260,000. However, this would require the village to identify an alternative arrangement for interim fire apparatus storage during the fire hall replacement period, which would cost most likely in the excess of $260,000. So staff don't believe the co-location, staff believe the co-location of the fire operations within the works yard building represents good value, given it avoids the cost of alternate locations. Another cost savings could be to reduce the administration fit out. This would result in approximately $150,000. Those are the options that staff came forward with to try and mitigate some of the capital shortfall. Or alternatively, we could resort to an option 3, which is a minimum scope using current allocated funds. So the current allocated funds are approximately $1.3 million. This is not drawn upon water DCCs. So if we did proceed this way, it would be noted that the village does not proceed with a new build in the water main servicing project, and the ability to apply the water DCCs and other grant funding to the site may be significantly constrained. The reason we couldn't use the DCCs is because we're not building a facility because of the increase in requirements within the village. So it starts adding an ambiguity in what we can and can't use in some of these funding.
I'm just going to challenge you on that with the new DCC rules. They do allow municipal infrastructure.
Yes.
And libraries, municipal halls?
Yes, 100% Mayor McEwen. So for a DCC to be associated, it has to be associated with a form of growth. The reason you're using it is for a growth purpose. So we might be walking the line. We can review this in terms of, if you don't build a new facility, are you just installing infrastructure?
I'm pretty sure, like, I think we have a good shot at it. We should at least pursue that because, just so everybody's aware, the provincial government has changed the rules on DCCs. It used to be very specifically growth-oriented, but when they took away the CACs and made them ACCs, that those DCCs are now attributable to community centers, libraries, fire halls, etc.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so there's three options in front of council tonight. Staff's recommendation is that the council proceed with option one due to some of the requirements, due to the operational requirements of that facility and the number of health and safety issues which have been highlighted in previous reports. However, I can read the recommendation for council if they like. We'll debate from there. Okay, so the option on the table for debate would be that council directs staff to proceed with the Anmore Operations Centre project based on the Class D estimate, a total project budget of $3.725 million. This would include a 10% contingency and excluding GST, and to approve the additional budget requirements from the Capital Reserve Fund.
Could I get someone to move?
Sorry, you got it?
Sorry, the additional funding requirements would be $300,000 from the Water DCC, $108,898 from interest that has accrued on the Growing Community Fund grant, $217,000 from Community Works Fund grant, and the additional $1,775,000 would be from capital reserves.
From contingency, or from our capital reserve? Yeah. Okay. Could I get someone to move it? Moved. And second, open up for discussion. Councillor Wyvern.
I guess I'm concerned about always going into our capital reserves because they're supposed to be replacing our capital assets. How does that affect the capital asset management plan if we start pulling money out for essentially new infrastructure?
Thank you to the chair. As we went through our asset management plan, we were well funded for the current assets. Now, the Public Works Yard is on the books as part of our asset management plan building. However, it's a very low level. So the increase in the asset value will increase the draw on the capital tax that comes through in future years. So we'd have to reassess that our allocation still covered the current buildings for replacement value.
Okay, so essentially we've been saving for replacements at the works yard, but maybe not to this degree.
Not to this degree. So it is definitely on the books and a part of our asset management plan already, but it will be increased with the value increase.
Okay, so we'll be covering this, like we will be, there's a plan for this. We're not just going to be willy-nilly taking money.
Yeah, and the asset management plan ebbs and flows. So there's some years where you have no purchasing and some years where you do, some years it's just maintenance. So it takes that into account. It's a long-term plan. It's not a year-over-year look. So we're not looking to replace this money in 1 year. It would just be rolled into like the next 20 years. We would increase.
Yeah, I'm just getting a little concerned like this. I want to do all these projects and I know we've saved hard for everything. I just want to make sure we're still being fiscally responsible.
Councillor Trowbridge.
I'm really happy to see this come in front of us. I'm an advocate of the full meal deal, not cutting back. I think we need to build for the future. Anybody that's been down there and spent any time, the conditions that our works yard folks have to deal with are nothing short of appalling. In fact, if we don't do something, and I don't mean to try and be a fearmonger, but I think we're in jeopardy of having WorkSafe come and shut us down based on a building that's breaking in half and the floor that's sagging and containers full of mold, and this needs to be done. My questions are not so much around the budget, but more around the operation. So one of the primary concerns is having a temporary facility for the fire trucks, and I see them drawn in there. But I recall standing there with Chief Sharp, and Scott Donaldson at the time, and they were talking about maneuverability for the trucks, and after an emergency, they can take their time to park. So do they have the, and it was suggested that they come in and then back down into the facility. Is that still the plan? And do they have that turning radius to do that?
Yeah, I believe as part of the IPD process, they've reviewed those turning movements to ensure that the fire trucks could come in and out. Anecdotally, looking at it right now, in terms of the plan, I believe they wouldn't have to back down the hill per se. I think there's plenty of space in front of the facility for them to come in, 3-point turn, and then back into the facility.
Yeah, Jay said that was completely fine. Yeah. He was cool with that. The other thing is, I see the scout, the scout area is, I can't see where fencing and control is.
So we would remove, like, the scouts would stay where they're currently at, but there'd be a new fence line put in for them, so they are not in the operational
They don't
yard.
come in the yard.
Correct.
That was a big concern. Also, you know, when we were there, Chris, we were talking about that a bit of a swale and then a pathway beside, and we weren't fully utilizing the property to the north. Does this, I can't tell by the drawing because I don't recall where the boundaries are. Does this expand the use of the 5 acres-ish that we have there?
Yeah, I would say it kind of expands it towards the back corner, towards the campground, where it kind of slopes off significantly. We've reclaimed some of that area there, and it looks like during the design process, they didn't go with the original concept design, which was really moving all of the land closer to the to that area. I think in part of the cost-saving measures, it was to, no, let's bring everything basically back to where the existing fence line is.
Okay, because I had envisioned the building as being the other way, so that the broad side of the building was facing to the east and they would enter there. So in order to save costs, you've let that stay narrow and then articulated the building the other way.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, this is good. I'm fine with it.
Councillor Richardson.
I asked this question last time, like ladder 7 and engine 1 on this drawing are put in one in front of the other. How come they can't go side by side?
To be frank, Councillor Richardson, I believe they can. I think it's just the way that they've drawn them. I think the way that they've shown it end on end is if they go side by side, there'd have to be maneuvering of maybe public works vehicles, but if they're end on end, one can go, the second can go.
Okay, so a lot of this is to have a system for the fire hall where the new one's getting built. I don't see any need to have the backhoe, the salt spreader, the trailer box, et cetera, inside during that time. Like, I don't know what other people do, but I don't think I've parked a car inside in the last 40 years of my life. So, you know, things can be outside, especially if it's a short period of time for 2 years. So you mentioned earlier you could shrink the building to 60 feet, and if you put them side by side, all the fire equipment fits in there. So, like, it's $4 million, and I think we have to really, like, I'm worried about capital reserves. I'm worried about the increased stuff moving forward. It seems, you know, we started at like 1.3, and we go by triple, and it seems to be running away a little bit too much to me. So, you know, if you can make the building 60 feet, put the 2 trucks side by side, like, I think that's the way to go, personally.
So in relation to that, Councillor Richardson, the reason that this drawing is shown here is to show how they would accommodate the trucks during that time while they were there. However, you will note that there are a number of other vehicles currently not housed within the facility. When those trucks are not there, those operational vehicles would now be housed inside again, out of the elements. I think from an operations point of view, it isn't a concern when it's the summer, they stay outside, that's easy. It's when it's cold, it's wet, it's snowy out, and right now operations, I believe, have to kind of come and warm the vehicles up for 20, 30 minutes before they actually exit. And yeah, and how to getting the plows functioning and all the other kind of stuff in the winter. So that's why they want the facility to be the size so they can actually house their equipment.
No, I understand, and it causes some difficulty, but it's currently what we do today, right? So I don't see the issue that you can do it for another couple of years. And I did actually spend some time looking into this because there's lots of remote facilities on highways in the north, and they don't have inside heated things for their trucks during the winter. Like if they're having issues with the hydraulics, they put a hydraulic heater on the system, they change the hydraulic fluid to a more less viscous fluid during the winter, et cetera, et cetera. There's a bunch of cold maintenance procedures that you do in order to keep them running functionally well outside. And to me, they're quite a bit less expensive, and that's for minus 40. We don't get minus 40 here. We have 1-2 days, maybe minus 10. So something seems to be out of whack from necessity versus, actual need. And it doesn't seem to balance to me for some reason. I can't wrap my head around it.
I've got a couple questions. First of all, I think we do need to look into the DCCs regarding this project. That's, I think, a key thing. Do we have in writing the offer of 100K for the existing ATCO trailer?
No, it's an estimate right now based on.
Could we put that on market and get that secured before approving this?
No, because the operations yard require that ATCO currently.
100%, yeah,
Yeah,
but
so-
it would just help with the decision to, regarding eliminating it or not, to make sure that we have a true value for it. I'm surprised, and I'll be honest, I'm surprised at 100K, and the reason being is that we paid 280 for them when we put them on the, right here, actually, when we bought them. So, that's pretty good value, and that was probably 12 years ago?
Yeah, so this came from the contractor Jacob Brothers saying how hard it is
Okay.
to get trailers currently and how they've been wanting trailers. And so it's kind of like based on their estimates of what they've been paying.
I just think it would be good to base a decision. The second thing is that what really concerns, sorry, is there?
Sorry, through the mayor, I was just noting to Mr. Boyd that the 100,000 is not included in the calculation, so that would
Right.
be an over above cost savings. That would be
It's 100 grand in savings, which would be very important.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the second question that I have is that this 5-acre parcel is provincial land. We currently do not have any structures on it per se. We have temporary. Has anybody gone through and checked the title that we're allowed to do any of this for this? I know it was given when the village incorporated as a facility, but I just want to make sure before we start putting any hard assets on it, has this been looked into?
I haven't personally. I don't know if our planner here is.
I think it would be worthwhile to reach out to the ministry to see, just to let them know what we're doing, or even better, that they would sign the land over to us.
For sure.
It's pretty tough to move forward without that. I think this is extremely needed for our department. I remember a time a couple of years ago when we did have that cold spell. It was about minus 15. We couldn't even get a couple of the trucks running. We weren't even able to put them anywhere to be able to thaw them out because of the hydraulics. So there is a big need down there. The existing workshop trailer, I'm going to classify, which is different from the ATCO trailer, but the workshop trailer, which has washrooms, I think Councillor Trowbridge is being generous when you say it doesn't even have a floor. Like, it doesn't have a floor. Like, it's been long overdue to be done. But at the time, it served well. So we do need something. The other aspect is that I think, with the fire department, I'm of the belief, Belcarra has signed on to this. I've put a call into Brant about having an emergency fire trustee meeting. They're going to need a similar facility in Belcarra as we will here. And at that point, because of our agreement under the trustees, it's a 50-50 split. It would make no sense for us not to, if they're going to borrow $200,000, $300,000 for a temporary facility, we should be doing the same because it's all coming out of the same pot. So I think that would be something that we would put directly onto the fire department regarding that. I'm a believer that we need to do it both in conjunction and make it the one facility. But as Councillor Wevering said, I got a real tough time taking $1.8 million out of our capital reserve that we've spent so much and, and built up. That also takes away further cash flow and interest that we're going to be generating off that money down the road. But it's a real challenge. We do need this facility for the betterment of the community. We'd be the first council to be hearing about it if none of those machines were able to run, if it got too cold and that. And we also need an internal thing to be able to supply and make our own brine, which we talked about as well. I know that machinery does like to stay warm. It doesn't like to stay out all the time. So while I'm in favor of this, I would like to get those, I'd first of all like to just get maybe even a copy of the agreement that we have for that land, just to make sure that we're not compromising it at all at this point in time, any aspects of the agreement that's there. So, any other comments? Councillor Trowbridge.
Yes, so just a couple of things that it's not just about keeping the equipment warm. Because of our salt storage there, our backhoe and other expensive equipment, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth, are degrading before their time. And that's one of the things that the guys brought up when I spent some time down there. That machine that we bought, the big backhoe unit, is rusting horribly well before its time. So we do need to get the equipment inside. There is no question in my mind. Plus, if we meet the provincial objectives, we're going to have 750 more homes in 20 years, I think it is. So I think we should be building for the future, not for now. But having heard the comments from Mayor McEwen, it does make sense to make crystal clear that we are not going to be in jeopardy of putting the capital on the property and losing the property or something. So I wonder if we could
defer to next meeting,
amend the motion so that we could approve it, but subject to clearing those hiccups that were mentioned by Mayor McEwen in the process. Somebody
help us.
Somebody help us, please.
Ms. Elrick.
Sorry, through the mayor, Mr. Joseph is just pulling the title up to the property right now. So it is registered in Anmore, but there is a reverter agreement on title that we would want to check.
Yeah.
Historical information tells me we're allowed possession of it until we don't use it.
Until we don't use it as a
As an
works yard, that's
operations
my
yard, then it
recollection.
reverts back to the province. But don't quote me on it, this was many moons
I
ago.
think it'd be wise if we could
So-
get a copy of that reverter
Yeah.
agreement and then distribute it to council as just, and that. So,
So council could defer or approve the budget based on review of this. Either would be appropriate.
I don't want to delay this. Is there anything that would, if we were to delay this to the next meeting? We've had debate, we've got the reports all in place. The only thing we need to see is this reverter agreement. Is there anything that would jeopardize it if we delayed it, deferred it till the next meeting?
Another option would be we're going to figure this out real quick here within the next day or so, this reverter agreement, and I could bring a motion back to council to say cancel the project because we've got bad news, if that makes sense. If you want to do it
Right,
that way.
so in that case, council, if they wish, they could approve the budget per the motion, subject to staff review of the reverter agreement and title requirements. If there's any identified issues, staff would bring it back to council before initiating the project.
That's what I suggested.
What about the financing for the temporary firehouse?
Yeah, I'm not too sure. Mayor McEwen, how would you like to go about that? Are you asking the $200,000 to $300,000 note you made earlier about Belcara and more borrowing the same, as in decreasing our budget by that amount?
It would decrease our budget,
Oh,
but
okay.
it would be difficult to put that after the case, after we've approved a budget for a new operations facility,
So we still need, so we could always come back because there's still lots of work to be done here, that if that happened, we could remove that from the
so
budget.
I would, at this point, from a procedural point of view, remove the fire trustee or the fire apparatus storage and just do the other case, and then we could add that at a later date when we find out what that temporary cost is going to be, and then add it to the budget.
So we've already, Councillor Trowbridge, I'll just answer this. In the report, currently within option 2, there was approximate savings of $260,000 if we did not proceed with the fire hall extension.
Okay. I'll open up to the fire trustees because again, this is a big. It's going to be a very delicate situation with our neighboring municipality. Councillor Trowbridge.
Yes, so again, I still think we could approve it subject to exploring the loan for the fire department, because I don't think not obtaining the loan should stop us. So to me, it's an add-on, a benefit. The other thing is, speaking with, what's his name, Brent. Speaking with him, he indicated that we could not apply for any kind of loan unless we already specified the building and costed it and we're moving forward with it. So it's not that you go and get the loan and then do the building. You do the building and then go apply for the loan. That's how he explained it when we were on site.
The loan has already been applied for, just so we're clear.
No,
The
I mean,
MFA.
for the use of the portion that you're talking
okay,
about,
okay.
he said we actually would have to go ahead with the building and the plant.
Yeah.
So.
Councillor Reverend.
I still think we just need to separate the two. I mean, I think we need to build what the village needs. I think it's great that it could accommodate temporary storage of the fire hall, but there should be a charge from the village to the fire department for the rent of that building. I mean, I don't know how, we haven't even figured out what that would be. That way it completely separates. Okay, yes, we're going to lend you this space in this building for 2 years during the construction of the fire hall, but there should be a cost to the fire department from the village. You know, I mean, that's just the way I see it, my business mind.
Lena.
One way you could do it is you could do it as a recoverable expense. So we would still track everything and pay the invoices and then do a recoverable to the fire service through Metro. And then Metro would apply that to the loan authorization bylaw that they already have. So they expect expenses and invoices. I would have to check with Metro Vancouver to see if they'd be.
Yeah, the issue is going to be
that.
that those invoices would then be paid by Belcarra. There's because the Saskatchewan Volunteer Fire Department is one entity comprised of both municipalities.
Yes.
So to be paying for ourselves, that complicates it quite significantly. So it's really just the one person.
So we've just reviewed the agreement here with the province. So the reverter agreement is in relation to if we don't use it for public works.
I can't hear
anymore.
a word you're saying.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry.
If we don't use the land any longer for public works, then it will revert back to the province. So as long as we're using it for public works, we can do as we please with the land.
And there's no issues with building any sort of structures or anything on it? So that's the whole agreement?
Yeah, the revert agreement is basically if we stop using it for public works, then we have
Okay.
to give the land back to the province.
So putting the fire department down there won't be an issue?
No, because we're still using it for public works.
Okay. Then that solves that. Okay. So we've got a motion on for moved in second. We will have to deal with the fire trustee aspect at a later date, but I guess any further comments before they call the question? Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Move on now to Mayor's report. Just had a couple things. The helicopters that are flying over, they're even going to increase. So it's to facilitate work that's being done at the north end of Indian Arm with Fortis. It's going to get up. They're ushering in about a crew of about 250 workers. They will get up to about 250 a day, getting closer to summer, and that's the only way to be able to get them in and out. So they are limited to how high they can go, so we will be hearing helicopters going up Indian Arm for the next several months. Water restrictions, again, I don't know if some of you have been up in the mountains and that, but the snowpack is extremely low, so water restrictions have started early, just to be able to offset and make sure we have lots of water. We are at 100% capacity currently at this point in time, but there is concern. This is unrare, the weather that we've been receiving right now, which normally May and June we get much more weather, wetter weather. Heard a lot from a lot of people over the weekend about lake traffic. I know that staff is working on, with Hydro, getting the reservation system set up earlier. It was, from what I've been heard, it was a real disaster on the weekend, but we're doing what we can. And, you know, this is what it was like every weekend before we had the reservation system in place. We just need to get it started earlier, and that conversation is going on with Hydro. This weekend we have the Anmore Community Market. Will be this Saturday, 10 a.m. till 3 p.m. There will be parking down at the Anmore Elementary School, which has been opened up. And then this weekend we have Poco May Day event this Saturday, which I think a bunch of us councillors will be going down to, as we have in years past to participate. So that's it. Council reports. Anything? Councillor Richardson.
Last week we had the volunteer appreciation dinner, which was very well attended and a very nice event, I thought. So thank you, staff, for putting that on, and thank you for all the volunteers that came out. And if you want to come to the next one, volunteer.
And put forth some recommendations for volunteers in our community. Again, asking again, we will be announcing it at Montmorey Days in September. Chief Administrative Officer's report. Ms. Elrick.
Thank you. So just to add to the stage 2 water restrictions, the big change on that going from stage 1 to stage 2 is there is no lawn watering at all permitted. So if you have any questions about what the watering restrictions entail, information's on our website, social media, as well as Metro Vancouver. The scholarship applications are open until May 19th, so please have those submitted in for the Dr. Hal Weinberg Scholarship. And just wanted to also, in addition to the comments by Mayor McEwen about the lake traffic and about operations at Bunsen Lake, just wanted to share again, and we did as well on social media and on our website today, if you do have concerns regarding operations at Bunsen, the email is projects@bchydro.com, and I encourage you to reach out to them. As Mayor McEwen said, one of our big issues is not having the reservation system open early enough, so hopefully we can get some headway on that. Thank you.
Good. We have some general correspondence, a letter from the City of Langford. I'll open up to public input and question period. 2-minute time limit applies to speakers.
I'll get a little more. Anyways, with the Public Works building, I 100% agree with equipment being covered. I've been in the field for more years than I can really want to say. And part of the Public Works Department is emergency. And if you get that call at 3 o'clock in the morning, you got to go out, that's snowing like this. You go out there, you got to go up, crawl underneath the truck, you got to check the brakes, you got to hook up the plows, everything's frozen. Instead of the trucks going out at 3 o'clock in the morning, they're going to go out at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, which half the people can't drive out of the driveway then. So I totally agree with that. I think that's a great idea. 30, 40 years ago, yeah, you never had buildings like that, and there was major problems. And my second comment is, I heard from both Chris and John that you guys are going to put in a new drainage system there at the park, or are you going to use the existing one which goes nowhere? Okay.
Mike, you couldn't even lower your mic for your wife.
Francine Major at 2555 Sunnyside Road. My comment is regarding the parking area and the allotment of handicap parking. Right now you have 2, and you're planning to expand it to 2 more. I would like to see you add 4 more to the lower parking lot. I don't think a total of 4 is enough.
Okay, thank you.
Nancy Maloney, 1724 East Road. Do we need to reset the clock? Already reset. Sorry? I already reset. Oh, you reset it? Okay. Yeah, I would like to echo the comment about, more accessible parking spaces are needed, that 2 is majorly inadequate, even 4 would not be sufficient, and it's probably not in compliance regarding our inclusivity policy in addition to that. Sorry, Councillor Turbridge, are you having trouble hearing me?
I have to focus, but I can hear you so far.
Okay, and then I had a question, actually, well, another park comment, but we're running out of time here. But related to the budget information distribution, does bulk mail from the village get exempted from residents' registration to avoid delivery of what's considered, flyers or junk mail? And also for things like the Anmore Advisor, Canada Post is not 100% reliable with putting those things into our mailboxes, is the reality. So I know this is an excellent idea about the budget information, but will people not get that who have registered their mailboxes to not have delivery of junk mail or bulk mail?
I'm sorry, I don't know what Canada Post is. Lena, do you want to?
I would think that it would go out as a regular letter, so I don't think it would show as junk mail.
Okay, so people should be receiving it. Okay, thank you. Actually, one quick comment related to about the composition of picnic tables for our Spirit Park, which could last forever. I found a dot company in Ontario that manufactures aluminum picnic tables at a much lesser cost. And I was able to buy one through Home Hardware, of all things, and it was delivered to our house. It will last forever, and it's a type of aluminum which doesn't absorb heat. And this dot company, I can send the information to someone.
That would be great. Thank you.
Anyway, it's amazing. If anyone would like to see one, there's one on our back deck.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Anything else? Okay, could I get a motion to adjourn? Move second. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone.